Hello and welcome to For Future Generations, episode 27. It is the 2nd of August. It is the Lord's. Well, it is not the Lord's Day. It
Yeah,
is
not this time.
Saturday night. And it is first time for everything. We are going live from, I'm on the other side of the United States from Sean today. I'm in North Dakota visiting with some friends. Went to a church conference and had a good time. Good time was had by all. Um, I'm a very tired and I've got very bad internet. So if I suddenly end this stream, blame it all on me. Sean had nothing to do with that. But speaking of Sean, how are you, man?
I'm good. My son is recovered from you making him cry, so he's
Oh,
he's doing all right too.
yeah.
so
Uh,
Jeff, on his way to North Dakota, stopped by. We had some barbecue. We had a good time. Got to see the whole family, and he brought quite a group, and then he made my son cry. So
yeah. Well, I
he did
was I
not.
was being I picked him up and was kind of tossing him around, kind of like I do with my kids, and he was not quite to that
Yeah.
stage of the relationship
No,
yet.
he had him by one leg, and he went whoop like up in the air, and then caught him, and he was immediately. I don't like this.
Yeah,
So,
it was a very cool move if I say so myself, but he was
it
not
was
impressed.
it was clean. It just scared him. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
uh, yeah. My kids are a bit impervious to that at this point, where I'll throw them halfway across the house and they'll land on the couch and they'll just come screaming right back for more. So, but you can't do that with kids you just met. And even though I have met him before, when they're that age, it's like you just met him.
yeah.
But anyway, so the name of the show tonight is Mission, Submission, and Fatherhood, and we have those are two different things, but they kind of tie into each other a little bit. But I've been perusing, kind of thinking about this issue of mission and submission, and I'll be straight up. I'm stealing a lot of this from Michael Foster and Eric Kahn, some of their ideas that they've talked about before, how a man needs to have purpose in his own life before he has a woman come along and follow him. Because if one blind man is following another, they're going to end up both falling into a pit, right? As the proverbs say. So, what does it mean to submit? Can a woman submit to a man who is aimless? And how does a man find his mission? Those are the kind of thoughts that I've been kind of thinking about. And one of the greatest examples that we have in Scripture of a submissive wife is Sarah, and she's even in the Hall of Faith, which we'll get to a little bit later. But you know, one of the patriarchs, the foremost patriarch in Christianity, right, is Abraham, and he was called out, raised up from among his brothers, and God said, "Come out and be ye separate," and sent him off into the wilderness. And his mission, seemed a bit strange, a bit aimless. You're going to go be a shepherd in the middle of nowhere, in this country far away from civilization as it was at the time. And Sarah was right there, right along with him the whole way. So quite an interesting story. But any housekeeping or notes that you wanted to say, Sean, before we just dove right into this?
Man, I didn't think of anything. So
Okay. So we're just to touch on the fact that this is on a Saturday. We put a poll out on our Facebook group. If you're not in our Facebook group, maybe drop in. Um, it's For Future Generations Fan Club on Facebook. It's a public group. There are no restrictions for getting in there, so don't waltz in there and dox yourself if you are sensitive that direction. But at the same time, we want as many people to be able to join the club as possible. So, hop on in there, get to know everybody, and we hope you have a good time. But anyway, we put a poll in the Facebook group and said, if you watch live, what is the best night for you? And I gave them a couple of options there. I said, Friday night, Saturday night, or here I can go ahead and share the page. Let me drop this in here excuse me while I whip this out. It's there.
I'm gonna have to
And
make that a soundbite, by the way.
the do.
No, excuse me while I whip this
Well,
out.
that already is a soundbite. That's from a movie I've never seen, but it's a well-known meme. So anyway, I posted this to our Facebook group for Future Generations Fan Club. I said, if you want to watch show live, what day works best for you? So I had Friday evenings, Saturday evenings, Sunday evenings, and I don't watch live. I also gave people the option of, please cancel the show, and there were no takers on that, so that made me feel a little bit good, you know. But very interesting that a lot of people on Saturday evenings. Over on Twitter, I posted more or less the same thing, and I said, if you want to watch the show, what day works best for you? We got a lot more people on Friday evenings than on Saturday. But Sunday evening, which is the evening that we typically do live, was the big loser.
Mhm.
So most people here in both polls seemingly do not watch live, or in this one, more people on Saturday available Saturday than don't watch live. But a lot of people not watching live, and then those that do watch live seem to prefer either Friday or Saturday to our typical Sunday release. So we're going to be considering, those polls are still live. They're still open until tomorrow. So if you have something to say, if you want to get your voice heard and let people know, I am definitely a Friday nighter. I'm definitely a Saturday nighter. Or please cancel the show. Let us know, and we will we
We-
will consider.
I do
Uh,
have one thing I want to bring up because we've never done this before. So, uh,
mhm.
for on Jeff's end, I am so behind that we're actually on a phone call while we're doing this because I'm so broken up on his end. So if there is an echo, um, because there's going to be some amount coming out of the phone, so I don't know what it sounds like on your end. If there's an echo of Jeff speaking, let me know and I'll see what I can do about that.
Yeah, so if the screen is frozen, if things are happening, please in the chat let us know so that we can do something to remedy that. Sean is kind of letting a little bit of the magic out, of how things work behind the scenes sometimes. But it's a duct tape and WD-40 kind of a night, and
Yeah.
we're just going to make it happen.
I got a comment saying everything sounds great so far, so
All right, thanks, Amos. Appreciate it,
keep
dude.
going.
All right. And speaking about being unprepared, I don't have a drink. So if I get halfway through this and start sounding hoarse, just send up a prayer for my poor throat. All right. So to get into the subject tonight's mission and submission, there's going to be a bit of Bible reading on this show tonight. And if if you're not into that, first off, what's wrong with you? But second off, you're just going to have to get over it because this is we are Christians. This is not a church podcast by any means. I mean, we talk about rock and roll and anime and who knows what other kind of weird things. But we're going to talk about Abraham and his mission and what it was like for his wife to to submit to him. So, want to pick up here in Genesis 17, verse 1. This is the calling of Abraham. And when Abram was 90 years old and 9, the Lord appeared to Abram and said to him, I am the Almighty God. Walk before me and be thou perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thy seed exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham. For a father of many nations have I made thee, and I will make thee exceeding fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee in thy generations for an everlasting covenant, to be a God to thee and to thy seed after thee. So this was the calling of Abraham. So Abraham is a farmer. He's a sheep farmer. He's got cattle. He's got herds. So he's got cattle and sheep. And the Lord appears to him and tells him, "Hey, get you up, get yourself out of this nation where you are, and go to the land of Canaan." So Abraham lived in Mesopotamia. He was probably a wealthy man, and he was almost certainly an idolater at this time. God reaches out to him and he commands him to throw away his household gods, commands him to get up and leave. And that is his mission. It's a very basic thing, right? On paper, to consider, what is your calling in life? Have you ever been hanging out with older guys, and maybe when you were a teenager, maybe a young man, and they're like, "So what is your calling in life? What are you going to do with yourself?" Sean, what was that like for you when you were younger?
Oh, of course, my calling was to be a pastor. I mean, I was in an SBC church and I knew my Bible well, so of course that was
Hmm.
my calling, and everyone affirmed it because I said it. So
Yeah, yeah.
that was
And
my experience.
I mean, if you've ever been to an SBC church, it's a very interesting thing. If you have any kind of a calling, you will meet zero people who will ever give any pushback whatsoever.
Yeah,
Um, every young man has a calling. Every young man who's serious about his faith will, at some point, realize that he's called to the ministry. And every person he's ever met or talked to in the church will say, "Oh yeah, that's definitely what God has for you." And that's not to say that it's not a good thing for people to want to pursue ministry, but it is bizarre that there's almost this faux pas against speaking out against it. If the qualifications for an elder include being apt to teach, right? Being good at not public speaking per se, but able to teach people things. And there was a young fellow that I knew who was like, "Man, I feel like I'm called to ministry." And when you got to talk to him, and he's a good kid. He was, I say kid, he was my age, but he was not apt to teach. And when I talked to him about what it was that he wanted to do, why he felt like he wanted to be a pastor, it was all the same virtues that he was identifying with the pastorate were all the same virtues of just being a good dad. And I remember thinking at the time, I don't know, I don't think you want to be a pastor. I think you just want to have kids. But I didn't say anything, and I haven't seen him since. So, well, I mean, I've seen him since then, but I haven't seen him for maybe 15 years. So, Cody, I hope you're doing well, man. And if you did become a pastor, I hope that's working out for you. But it was interesting. But anyway, so Abraham's calling, God calls him into a place, calls him out of a place. He says, "Go into the land of Canaan." But he already has his employment. He's in a family that's nomadic farmer of some sort. At least he became nomadic as soon as he got called, and left the land of Mesopotamia. Interestingly, at this point in history, Mesopotamia is actually in a bit of turmoil. You have a period where a lot of kings are getting killed and replaced very, very rapidly, very rapid succession. And you also have destruction of large cities in Mesopotamia, cities that some people thought would never end. It seemed like the end of the world as we know it. And it's at this time that God appears to Abraham and says, "Hey, get you up and get out of here." So it might seem strange to us looking at it, to to say, why would Abraham leave the seat of civilization, which at the time Mesopotamia and Egypt were the two civilizations, at least as far as we know, on the planet. And he says, get yourself up and go off to this place in Canaan, which is kind of like a nowhere, a dirt desert kind of behind things. It's on the road between the two, between Egypt and Mesopotamia, but it's not really. There aren't any great civilizations there. You've got up in what is modern day Turkey. You've got some cities there. You've got things along the Fertile Crescent, but not a lot going on in Palestine, the land where Abraham is commanded to go. But that is his mission. That's his mission. Straightforward. Get up, go. And what does he do? He loads up his household and he sets out and he leaves. And that is his mission for the rest of his life, is to establish himself as a patriarch. So his mission in life that God gives him is have kids and have cattle. And then, he gets along halfway through that and he says, God, what's going on here? I don't have any kids. There's that quite interesting passage where he says, behold, I have no children, and my heir is the slave born in my own house. And it's at that time that God promises him, he says, what wilt thou give me, seeing I have no son? That very glorious pro-life and pro-family message there. Abraham saying, if I don't have any children, I'm not worth anything. I haven't accomplished my mission. So God promises to give him a son at that time. So his mission is straightforward, but at the same time, it's easy to say a thing and less easy to do a thing. Kind of like my mission in life right now is have a job and feed your kids, and maybe be a good witness to the people around you, and maybe to try and be the best example of a Christian father and a Christian brother in the place where you live in Texas, in Central Texas. That's pretty straightforward on paper. It's easy to say, have a job, feed your kids, raise them up in the way that is right, so that when they are old, they will not depart from it. But that's not the same thing. It's easy to say, not as easy necessarily to do. But anyway, Sean, thoughts on that so far?
I mean, what is where he comes from, right?
Yeah, so he comes out of which is in, it's called of the Chaldees.
Chaldeans,
yeah, it's at the time is at least the time that we believe it is, that I believe it is, because the timeline is a bit contested. Is kind of in a civil war, and this is around the time of sorry, my brain is completely shot, and I never was good with
names. I want to say that area eventually becomes Assyria, right? Like that's what we.
No, he's down in the bottom of Mesopotamia. He's a little bit north of Babylon. So Assyria conquers this area, but it's not where Assyria comes from. Assyria is further north along the Mesopotamian river, or the Mesopotamian basin, because it's on both rivers. But so the city of Nineveh, which is the seat of Assyria, is closer to the bottom of Turkey, kind of the top of Iraq. And then of the Chaldees was kind of a lot closer to Babylon, or the bottom of Iraq.
I see
if you follow that line on Iraq, it's kind of the bottom and top of that line there.
It looks like because this was the map. I looked up the map, and this is how I had it in my head. So it's on the Euphrates. It's close to the Persian Gulf.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Let me see. Can you share that map? Because it might be helpful for people.
Yeah, let me see. I don't know if this is the best one. I'll just go ahead and share it. Let's see.
Because there are some Some maps are better than others about kind of showing
Does
what
this
what
show
we're
up big
after.
enough?
Let's
Oh,
see.
oh, we're doing the thing. There you go.
There we go. So
Yeah, that's about it.
yep, you can see where that red arrow. He starts out. Like I said, it's a bit above Babylon because Babylon's further along south on that river on the and on the Euphrates River, and then where he is at the top there in Haran. That's where God appears to him again in a dream, and it's not far from that location where Nineveh would later show up. And so if we look up um, Nineveh, which is never spelt the way you think it should be, Nineveh map, and let's see. Some of these maps are so busy that it's hard to actually see what's going on.
Yeah.
But I'm not seeing one that shows up real good to hand immediately. There's this map from Britannica.
I'm
So
gonna share this as a redemption for myself. That Benjamin Alpaca gives us. Sean may have been referring to Haran, which is part of Assyria. This
yeah.
map was in my head. So whatever I was thinking, like this, the picture was
Hmm.
correct in my head. That's why I was like, well, let me
Yeah.
just pull up the map.
Yeah. So his first revelation is in Ur of the Chaldees. His second appearance when God comes to him is when he's in Haran.
Okay,
And so that's probably,
that
Benjamin
makes
is
sense.
probably right there. That's probably what you were thinking of right there. But anyway, let's do that. There we go. Back as we were. So, he has a straightforward mission. His mission is to live in Mesopotamia, to live in Canaan, to live in what would later become Palestine and later Israel, named for his grandson, to live there and to have many children and father nations. And part of that mission is, like I mentioned earlier, to raise up children in the way they should go, so that when they're old, they will not depart from them. And as we talked about in a previous show about Isaac, he he was. We are getting a little bit of feedback now, Sean,
I know. I'm
or at least
sorry.
I'm.
You know what it was? I was pulling up my phone because I was checking to see something.
All right, but when Isaac, when he's making his, when he's swearing before God with Laban, his father-in-law, he refuses to swear by the false gods of his great great grandfathers, and instead swears by the fear of his father Isaac. And it's that kind of tradition, that kind of honesty, integrity, and virtue that was instilled by Abraham into Isaac and by Isaac into Jacob that brings you that generational faithfulness. So, like I said earlier, easy to do on paper, not necessarily so much in practice. But I wanted to also focus on uh, one person in this who doesn't necessarily get as much praise as I think is due her, and that is Sarah. Sarah is constantly there by Abraham's side. Whenever we read about Abraham, we're reading about Sarah. When he goes down into Egypt, and Abraham says to Sarah, "Hey, these people will kill me because they want to marry you, so tell them I'm your sister." Sarah's right there willing to do it. And that it's a very bizarre thing. Sean, I don't know. What is your opinion on this? It's a difficult situation to parse, but obviously, a husband doesn't have the authority to command his wife to disobey God, right? So he goes down into Egypt and he commands his wife to lie, and she does. Um, was that sin on her part to obey the voice of her husband that way, or what is your take on
I
that
mean,
whole?
I see. I don't know that that would be disobeying God. To, I mean, in their case, it's not a lie, right? Like,
Yeah, because she is his sister, technically.
yeah, like, he's not really lying. He's just kind of giving the part of the truth that benefits him.
Mm-hmm. Unlike Isaac and Rebecca later, who, it's just a straight up lie.
It's just a lie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, hey, if it's good enough for my father, then,
it's good enough for me.
Enough for me.
But,
I think, the reason I made a face when you were like, oh yeah, let me get an answer from you. I was at a church where there was a guy who was very adamant that Sarah was not necessarily raped, but like used in that manner, and maybe she went along with it because she didn't want to blow their cover or something. Like, there was a guy that was like really into that idea, not like into that like, oh man, that's my fetish, but like that theory was big with him. I don't know why. I always thought that was
bizarre, especially since the Bible specifically says that didn't happen.
Yeah, well, it's just a weird thing. I don't know, but I mean, I don't see anything wrong with the way that they went about it. I mean, I would, of course, it was, deceptive, but.
But we read about lots of times in Scripture where deception is used, and it's not necessarily seen as a sin. Of course, battlefield strategy, when Benjamin is destroyed by the rest of the Israelite forces, they gather themselves up together, and then they have a fake retreat. And then when they draw the men away from the city, and then these men who are in hiding go in and they kill everybody in the city, man, woman, child, burn the city to the ground. And, the Bible never says, oh, by the way, feints in warfare are sinful, because it's lying, right?
Yeah.
So there's a very interesting kind of a debate to be had about.
I don't think it's sin. That's my answer.
And when is lying sinful, and when is it okay? Was it? Do you think it was sinful for Isaac and Rebecca when they did the same thing times 2? Because that was a little more. Because that one's definitely a lie. I mean, Rebecca was his cousin.
The Bible doesn't make it sound like it was a bad thing. That's usually my answer to that. So, Jacob is very much a deceitful person. Like, in fact, that's kind of his whole thing. Like, that's his nom de plume. Like that's like he's a cheater. It's who he is. I mean, it even Esau even says at one point, he says, like, is his name not rightly Jacob? Right. Because this is all he does is just scam people. And but the Bible never says it's a bad thing. And so that's what
Indian scammer.
Yeah. So I that's really my answer to it. They don't. It's never portrayed as if this was an act of unfaithfulness. So that is why I tend to say, okay, Abraham's the good guy, unless it is explicitly said he did a bad guy thing. He's acting as a good guy the whole time.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely a safe place to park your car, on Abraham's, it's the friend-enemy distinction in theology, right? It's like, here's Abraham's my guy. He did the thing. God didn't say it was bad. Ergo, he's okay. So, when it comes to Abraham and Sarah, I think it was unwise, but I don't think it was necessarily sinful. When it comes to Isaac and Rebecca, I actually take a little bit of a different position there. I think it was actually sinful. In both instances, it was a bit of a lack of faith. Or was it? Because it's one of those tricky situations. Is it unfaithful? Is it lack of faith to do something in self-preservation? It's like saying, I'm gonna go shopping at 10 o'clock at night on the urban side of town, and I'm not going to bring my gun. Is that really being faithful? I have faith that God will protect me, or is that you just being dumb?
No, that's tempting. If anything, you're tempting God by that.
Yeah. So where do you draw the line there?
Well, like I said, I think it's it's not even just self-preservation. He's preserving at the very least, the well-being of his wife in both
Right.
cases. So
Right.
I see it as, I mean, what amount of lies would you be willing to tell to keep your wife from being dishonored by even a king, right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
what extent would you go to? I mean, it's, to me personally, it's the thing that people get on John Piper about, where he's like, well, if someone came into my house, I wouldn't shoot them because I'm a
Yeah.
Christian, whatever. It's
I
like,
just sit there
well,
and pray for them
yeah.
while they're having their way with my wife. Yeah. No, not in the
So
least bit. Yeah.
I see it as being, I guess, in the ballpark. I mean, it's a very
Mhm.
big ballpark, but I would say it's in the general ballpark of like, well, I'm not willing to tell a lie. It reminds me.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too far from this, but when I was when I first joined the army, I was I was scheduled to be an EOD guy, so that was my initial contract, and then things happened, and I didn't become EOD. But um, because of that, I had to go through the top secret with secret compartmented information clearance, which is like super deep. Like that's the information that Hillary Clinton wiped from her laptop was top secret, with secret compartmented information. Like that's how high up that clearance level is. And so they called my best friend, who likes to show up in the chat sometimes, Thaddeus. Yeah, I'm going to put him on blast right now, actually. They called him up and they're like, hey, man, he's your friend. What do you think of him? Yeah, he's cool, whatever. And then they asked, like, does he have any loyalties to any countries other than the United States? And at the time, I was really into uh, Irish independence history, right? I was into like Michael Collins and all that, right? Like the beginnings of the IRA, and I found it fascinating at the time. And he was like, well, he really likes Ireland. And they were like, what do you mean? And he's like, oh, dude, this guy would do anything for I. Like, dude, don't say that. Like, that's crazy. But he was just
With
saying,
friends like these, man.
yeah, he was just saying crazy things that he has since said like that's not the right thing to do. But in his mind at the time, it was like, I'm not gonna lie. I couldn't lie to the U.S. government that you're 100% loyal to America.
Don't lie
like,
to America. Don't lie to the feds, man. Don't do it.
So it was just like a weird, like they had asked me about it. They're like, what is the deal with this guy? And I'm like, what do you want me to say, man? I was like, here's what it was. I had done some papers in college, and it historically, it's an interesting time period. And Liam Neeson does a great job playing Michael Collins. And so I was like really into Michael Collins at the time. And anyways, that's so, yeah, sometimes it makes sense to just not throw it all out there. You know?
Yeah, and there's a distinction to be made between withholding information and lying, as well. For those who are more black and white on the issue, well, I could never tell a lie. That doesn't mean you have to spill your guts every time somebody asks you a question either. So, but that's neither here nor there. So anyway, we're ready for our next deep passage of scripture. This shouldn't be too long, but here's something that I wanted to point out, which is in Hebrews 11, you have the Hall of Faith, right? That's what we call it. It's not in the scriptures; it doesn't call it the Hall of Faith, but it's kind of a play on words, a Hall of Fame. But this is Hebrews 11, starting in verse 1. I'm just going to read through for a bit and note who shows up along in these passages. Hebrews 11, verse 1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen, for by it the elders obtained a good report. Through faith we understand that the worlds were framed by the word of God, so that things which are seen were not made of things which do appear. By faith Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain, by which he obtained witness that he was righteous, God testifying of his gifts, and by it he, being dead, yet speaks. By faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death, and was not found, because God translated him, meaning he took him up into the air. For before his translation he had this testimony, that he pleased God. But without faith it is impossible to please God, for he that comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. By faith Noah, being warned of God of things not seen as yet, moved with fear, prepared an ark to the saving of his house, by the which he condemned the world, and became heir of the righteousness which is by faith. By faith Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, after he died, by the way, so he didn't even get to see it, obeyed, and he went out, not knowing whither he went. Right? Abraham had never been to this part of the world before. He just got up and went. By faith he sojourned in the land of promise, as in a strange country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he looked for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Through faith also Sarah herself received strength to conceive seed, and was delivered of a child when she was past age, because she judged him faithful who had promised. Therefore sprang there even of one, and him as good as dead, so many as the stars of the sky in multitude, and as the sand which is by the seashore innumerable. These all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, and were persuaded of them, and embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. For they that say such things declare plainly that they seek a country. And truly, if they had been mindful of that country from whence they came out, they might have had opportunity to have returned. But now they desire a better country, that is, a heavenly one. Wherefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared for them a city. So the trial of Abraham in the wilderness, the trial of Isaac as is coming up in the Hall of Faith, where he is told to sacrifice his beloved son, and God stops his hand in the act. He says, "No, do not slay your son, and I've provided a sacrifice for you in his place." That that is a beautiful symbol of the faith that we have today, and the coming Christ, who came, and coming after Abraham, but came before we were, sacrificed himself for us. So that whole setup there was the whole purpose of Abraham being there, to establish the nation of Israel, to establish the line of Judah, to bring about the coming Messiah. And all of that was to our benefit. So here's one man with a very simple mission, yet difficult to fulfill. Be faithful, live in the land of Canaan. And because of his faithfulness, because of the faithfulness of Abraham and the faithfulness of Sarah, submitting to her husband's mission, that is made possible for us. So want to change gears a little bit and talk about Sarah. Here is Sarah from the land of Ur of the Chaldees, just like her husband, just like her half brother Abraham, brought out to a land that is foreign to her. They park her out in the middle of nowhere, and they say, "Okay, woman, this is where we're going to die. We're going to live here for the rest of our life. God's going to provide us a child, and we're going to die here." And here they are. They're getting older. They're past childbearing age. And, how tempted would any modern woman be to say, "You know what, forget this. I'm going home. I'm going back to my, surely she's got cousins back in Ur, that's the cradle of civilization at the time. Or, I can go off to Egypt." She was still a good looking woman, according to the scriptures. She could just leave Abraham out in the desert to die by himself. All of those options were there for her. And yet she was honorable, and she was submissive to her husband's mission. When God said to Abraham, "You are going to go into this land, you're going to have children, you're going to raise them in the way that is right, you're going to establish a line for the coming Messiah, for the Savior of the whole world," all of that depending on your obedience in this one thing. And her submission to her husband was as important as his mission itself. When God made Adam in the garden, he gave him a helper suitable for him. That's translated in the King James as helpmeet, which has kind of become a noun of its own um, definition. But that's actually two words: a help meet for him, a suitable helper for him, a good assistant. I jokingly sometimes refer to my wife as my secretary, especially when we're planning things. I'll say, "Yeah, let me get with my secretary and make sure my schedule's open." Yeah, kind of a funny way of referring to the wife, but it's really an honest way of referring to it too, because my wife is my assistant. I'm very bad with names, so I'll walk into a place and I'll have my wife hanging on my arm, and I'll kind of turn to her and I'll be like, "Hey, the guy over there,
Who's
the
that
guy
guy?
with the guy with the red hair and the horn rim glasses right there, that guy. I remember, he's from Oklahoma. He does this for a living. He's got this many kids, and last time we saw each other was at so and so's wedding. Do you remember his name?" And then she'll think for a little bit, and then she'll give me a name, and not to let give away too much of my secret here, but even if I know you, even if you're a good friend, I probably have messed up your name a couple times, and I apologize wholeheartedly. But get yourself a wife, guys. Get yourselves a suitable helper, a woman who can help you, aid you in your mission, because that's why God gave Adam Eve, a helper suitable for his mission. His mission was to name the animals in the garden, to tend and keep the garden, and he had a helper suitable for him to that end. And that was what Sarah was to Abraham. He required a helper in his function as a patriarch. First off, because to be a patriarch, what is the first thing, Sean? If you're thinking about this linguistically, what is the first step of becoming a patriarch?
Well, you got to be a daddy.
Gotta be a dad,
That's
right?
where
You
it comes
gotta
from.
be a patre, right? A
Yeah.
dad, a father. You cannot be a patriarche, or I'm probably butchering the grammar there, but you cannot be a father king or a father ruler if you are not a father. And Abraham required a helper, if in no other way, certainly in the fact that to have kids, he needed a wife. And God provided him a wife, and he provided miraculously that child that was needed. So, last bit of scripture for us tonight, but I think this speaks volumes to the character of who Sarah was and who she is to us as an example. If you want an example of a truly good wife, we have one in the person of Sarah. So, First Peter 3, picking up in verse 6, it's just very brief. Very brief. It says, "Even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters you are, as long as you do well and are not afraid with any amazement." So, in Peter's admonition for the women uh, that are the subject of this epistle, which extends even to modern women today, right? The women who are within earshot of this epistle, here's the admonition to you: obey your husbands. Adorn yourselves with good works, a meek and quiet spirit, and sub trust. He says, "Trust in God, adorn yourselves, being in subjection to your own husbands, even as Sarah, who called Abraham Lord." So submission means calling your husband your Lord, means obeying him, even if he's going to pull up stakes and go off to some you know seemingly god-forsaken back world place like Canaan or North Dakota, or some middle of the nowhere like Afghanistan today. you know
Texas. That
in
was it. That
Texas.
was it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm The noble and the honorable wife is submissive to her husband in following his lead because he is fulfilling a mission, because he has a duty before God. He has a role to fulfill. He has a career, he has a family, and he can't do it without you. So I know we don't have a lot of female viewership, but for the females who are watching this, your husband needs you. He needs you, and he needs you to be submitting to him as he is fulfilling his mission. When we talk about submission, a lot of times people, they think about submission in like almost a
Like a
WWE kind of a way. It's
bro,
like,
I was
or
just gonna say figure four leg lock, bro. Like,
yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, Sean, you know a bit about submissions,
oh yeah.
right? What would you say would be the most remarkable submission that you ever saw along these
Um,
lines?
I like the Walls of Jericho. Um, the Walls of Jericho is a good one. I had said the figure four leg lock is probably the most iconic.
hmm
Um, Bret Hart's sharpshooter is a big
Yeah.
one.
I mean, the one
Um,
that everybody knows is, oh, and here comes so and so with a metal chair. I know that's not
yeah,
exactly a submission,
that's
but
not
that's like
submission.
that's the meme that everybody knows. But you've got or what's the one that Donald Trump did, or Donald Trump had done to him, where they pile drive him into the tarmac. Uh,
I don't
I don't
remember,
remember what that's
man.
called, but it's
Yeah.
that's
I
a meme in its own right as
Oh,
well.
here
But
we go. Z says the Steiner recliner. That's a good one. Scott Steiner is white boy summer memes to the max. Like I
yeah.
actually made a white boy summer meme about Scott Steiner.
Well, man, with a name like Scott, you can't help it,
Yeah.
But
Uh,
people think of submission and they immediately go to like WWE wrestling, or maybe it's they're along the lines of mixed martial arts, in the octagon, an arm bar, or a headlock. You've got this guy, just absolutely at your mercy, and he's got to tap out. That's the thing people are thinking of when they hear the word submission. But that's not what the Bible's talking about, a wife submitting to her husband. It's much more in the lines of what, when the Son, talking about God, when the Son, Jesus Christ, is submitting to the will of the Father. And then the Holy Spirit is submitting to the Son and the Father. Or if you're Eastern Orthodox, submitting to the Father.
boo. I was doing a thumbs
But
down. Boo.
yeah.
There you
But despite the fact that we have this submission in the Godhead, we have the submission of the Son to the Father, we have the submission of the Spirit to the Son and the Father. Christ says to his disciples, I am sending the Spirit. So to the ortho bros, I will just say, Christ sent the Spirit, which means the Spirit is submitting to the will of the Son, as the Son is submitting to the will of the Father. Yet they are all equal. There's a hierarchy and there's a submission there, and yet there is an equality among them. In the army, you might have a captain and a major. The captain's job is to obey the major, but they are still equals as men before the law. If the captain is speeding and he gets pulled over by an MP, and if the major is speeding as he gets pulled over by the MP doesn't care. I mean, unless you're the general, he's not going to let you go. He's going to slap you with a fine, right?
I do want to get technical about one thing because
hmm
we're talking about the Trinity, so we have to be technical. So
That's the time
God,
for it.
yeah, God has one will. So
Yes.
when we talk about submission, it would be improper to say that the will of Christ submits to the will of the Father.
Yeah, because they
That
are
because
one
it's
will.
one will. Yeah. So that's the issue with what's the heresy that short man holds to? Who's a short man with the big shoes? Who am I thinking of? That's the name
Oh,
thing. I can't think of his name.
dude,
You know who I'm
you're
talking
asking
about.
you're asking the guy who doesn't do names.
He's a little short, angry
Yeah,
man, and he's got big shoes, and
yeah, and
um,
he raps. Yeah, I don't remember his name either,
but
but I
anyways,
know his
yeah,
face, his very
the
punchable face.
that's
Owen
Owen
Strawn,
Strahan. Thank you. I always want to say Strahan because I think of like Michael Strahan,
Cindy
but
Sheehan.
yeah, he
Yeah, Michael Strahan.
but yeah, um the issue with like the eternal subordination of the Son thing that he holds
Mhm.
to is that the Son in his divinity, like God the Son, is not submitting his will to the will of the Father because there's only one will of God. Will will is a matter of being and not person. Like I
Right.
said, I like you see my eyes doing the technical thinking thing because it's very, and I appreciate our friend saying Nicene Orthodoxy thanks you. Yeah, so
Yes.
I had to step in there as
Hmm.
far as we're talking about submission within the Godhead.
No, I appreciate that because it is an area that you do need to be careful because there are ramifications for the words that you use. So the Father sent the Son, and the Son submitted to the Father, but there was not a diversity of wills within that.
I
There
would
was
say that
one will.
but that's why I would say that Jesus submits to the Father in his humanity
Hmm.
because that is because we don't want to have monothelitism where we say that Jesus only has one will. Um, Jesus has that's where thelo. I get to mention my favorite
Hmm.
word there again. Um, so uh, the human will of Jesus submits to the Father. You can say that they're sent out, and there's the economic Trinity as it's told, but I just want to make sure that we're not talking about like that because God does not submit to anyone.
Correct.
So I would just take submission out of
Take it
the
out of the equation,
equation when talking about
the Godhead.
the Godhead. Yeah, interactions
Hmm.
within the one God.
Hmm.
That's so. Yeah, sorry. I know that there's some people that are thankful for that, and but I had to come out and
No,
say that.
absolutely. It's a good point to be made because you always run into problems when you try to compare humans upward to God. When you try to make a comparison between two states of being, you say, well, the as Christ in the church, that you can only take that so far because Christ in the church and a wife and a husband are different in that the husband's actually going to sin. Christ is never going to sin. He's never going to forsake. He's never going to do those things that husbands do. So it's good to have these comparisons. It's good to have helpful, um, as it were, personifications of God in our life. But at the same time, all of those things can be taken too far because we are so infinitely below God that for us to even attempt to make comparisons is going to be fraught with perils. So
I do
appreciate
actually
that
in a
nonetheless.
future episode put a pin in this. I have uh, I guess a thought and a presentation on comparing when the way that Jesus says, "Not my will, but yours be done" among the Gospels, and what that
Hmm.
means, and the words "thelo" and "boule" as they are used uh, in the different Gospels, and what it means for Jesus and his humanity submit to the Father. It's a very interesting discussion. I love it. So that might be a future episode to get
Yeah,
into.
sounds like a fantastic episode, and I'll definitely have to do some homework because Greek is not my forte. Uh,
It's not
but
as complicated as you think.
yeah, well, I don't have the Greek letters straight yet, so I'm
Okay.
still I've barely touched the surface. Latin for me was always a lot more approachable because I already know the Latin letters.
That's true. Yeah.
But anyhow, all of this to say, we have examples of submissive wives in Scripture, Sarah foremost among them, but there are several. We have Abigail, who was first of all submissive to her fat, stupid husband. He commanded his servants to disregard David, and she submitted to her husband in a way by disobeying him, by going and giving. She wasn't disobeying him directly, but she was certainly doing something contrary to what he had done, giving gifts to David and his men to keep them off of the hunt, keep them from coming and killing her husband. That was submission. She was being a suitable helper to her husband. She saved his life. Now God struck him down anyway, but then she married David and ended up being a suitable helper for him as well. When it comes to suitable helpers and good wives in the scriptures, you have the story of Isaac and Rebekah. Um, you know, um, excuse me. Like I mentioned in a previous episode, bad bad girls or good girls rarely make history, right? We don't know a lot about Rebekah in the Bible, and I would say that's because she was an excellent wife and mother. She was submissive to her husband. She was obedient to God. When God came to her and said to her and to Isaac, in Jacob will my name be called, or actually that's a reference to Isaac that I just quoted. In Isaac shall my name be called, but he said Jacob is the chosen son. He is the favored son. She submitted to that call. Her husband's mission was to fulfill that, and she helped fulfill that by deceiving at one point her husband, and at another point bringing Jacob to Isaac and sending him off to Padan Aram to find a spouse, back into Mesopotamia to get a wife from his countrymen. And all of that to say, we have these wonderful examples of honorable, submissive wives in the scripture who are submitting to their husband as he is committing himself to his mission.
I will say it's
Final
funny
thought.
you were saying with Rebecca. Were you asking me for final thoughts? Because I actually do have quite a few. Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned like Rebecca not being mentioned much, because Rebecca has my favorite woman moment in scripture, and it's when her and Isaac are just kind of hanging out, and it's so obvious by the way that they're like sitting together or whatever it is that they're doing, that he's like, come on, dude, that's not your sister, get out of here. I love
it's
that.
It's kind of like there was a time, I don't know what baseball game it was, but you know how baseball games do the kiss cam?
Yeah.
And they were going around, and there was this one guy who, there was this cute little couple, and they put him in the kiss cam, and he pulls out some paper and unrolls it, and it says, "My sister." Yeah. And then immediately they start making out.
Oh, dog.
Like, obviously, that was not his sister. He was pulling a prank.
That's funny.
Right? Because that's not how you treat your sister.
Yeah.
So it's like whatever it was that Isaac and Rebecca were getting to on that rooftop. Pharaoh looked across the roofs and he saw it, and he was like, dude, that's not your sister. What?
Oh, man, I wish I had a sister like that, man.
Dude, what is this, Alabama? Yeah, it was a very, very familiar, less familial kind of attitude that they had toward each other, and I think the phraseology there was extremely euphemistic. I think they were going at it. So
I think they were just being cute. I don't think they were.
Could be
on a roof, dude. Come on, man. Like, what kind of rock star behavior is that?
The thing is, roofs were actually much more private back then.
Obviously it was not a private roof, because Pharaoh's like, enough. Yo, what is?
Yeah,
no, come on, bro.
But anyways, you had Bathsheba taking a bath on the roof, and seemingly she didn't. Seem to think there was anything wrong with that, but
she wasn't.
Doing more than that. Yeah. So anyway,
Anyway,
diversion aside,
the
other
other thing, we were
thoughts?
talking about the sacrifice of Isaac. A lot of people will say today, because they don't have that Hebrews passage that you were quoting from in the back of their mind, they'll have this idea that the faith that Abraham had was that God was going to stay his hand. And I don't see that as being true based on that Hebrews passage, because, and I don't have, you have it in front of you, it looks like, but it mentions the resurrection, essentially, that the idea was God had already promised that this particular son Isaac was going to be his heir, and so Abraham's faith was, even if I kill him, he will
God will
still be
raise
my
him up.
heir. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was faith in the resurrection, in
Yeah.
the concept of resurrection at the very least. That's a thing I like. And then the Sarah laughing thing, I'm surprised we didn't get to that, because when I was younger, you read that and it's like, God says, "Hey, I'm gonna, make you a mother," and she's over there laughing like, "Yeah, right." And then God's like, "Were you laughing?" She's like, "No." And he's like, "Don't lie to me, woman. I know you're laughing." And so as a kid, that's how you read it. But now I'm kind of like, it's like she's laughing at the absurdity of something that she does have faith it will happen, but she's just laughing at the absurdity of it, of a 100-year-old woman giving birth.
Yeah. Could be. All right. Well, let's stroll through some of these comments, and looking at them, there's definitely need the nightly or the weekly reminder. Guys, give a little more context.
I know the context. I've been paying attention.
Some of these are a little bit devoid of that. But Benjamin Alpaca says, "Looking forward to it." Yep. Thank you. We hear both of you clearly. Glad that we're making it. Sean may have been referring to Haran. That is correct. We showed the map. Here we have, Benjamin says, "You could make a case that this was for the purpose of self-defense." And I think Sean did make that case, and I think it's a good argument. Amos Coleman, "Good evening, gentlemen." Good evening, sir. Everything sounds great. Glad to hear it. And he says, "Get this man a sweet tea." My friend, my brother Amos, I am in the land of pagans. There is no sweet tea here to be found.
Oh no.
They do unsweet tea up here. Mostly what they drink is some concoction that they call pop, which had me fooled. I thought it was called Coke. But anyhow, Amos Coleman, "Let me grab my sword."
I think this was when you were talking about the anime.
He is a fellow appreciator, I take it. All right, Ephesians 4:11-16.
I looked that up.
Indeed.
He brought that up in the we were talking about like people being called to be pastors. And that unfortunately in a lot of SBC churches, at least as we were growing up, because I grew up SBC, and
well, I mean, I was IFB into SBC, back and forth depending on where we lived at the time.
But yeah, he was just saying, like, some people are called to be ministers. Some people are called to be other things. Crazy, right?
Some people are called to be truck drivers.
Yep.
RE, the ministry talk earlier. Yep. He says, "It's yonder," referring to North Dakota being all over the place. Yep.
No, he was referring to where Ur of the Chaldeans was.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Because I was like, was it over here? He's like, it's yonder. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Further away. Yeah. Further up and further over. Talking about it wasn't a lie when Abraham said Sarah was his sister.
He was laughing at me saying, like, well, it wasn't a lie. Like that's
yeah.
It was deceptive.
Indeed, it was not. Like we mentioned, though, when Isaac and Rebecca did it, it was a lie, and it was still just as deceptive.
Yep.
Amos Coleman, aspirational potato scholar.
This is when we're talking about my love of Ireland. It reminds me of my my favorite joke. How many potatoes does it take to kill an Irishman? 0.
Yes. Oh, that's awful, man.
Fun fact, potatoes are not native to Ireland.
That is right.
Isn't that crazy? And
Uh,
tomatoes are not native to Europe at
to
all.
Italy,
Yeah,
yeah.
not to
Um,
Italy. Yeah,
yeah. Do you know where potatoes come from?
North America, right?
Nope, Peru, South
Oh,
America.
really?
The
Okay,
potatoes in North America came from Europe. So they went the long way. They went from
really,
Peru to Spain, from Spain to Germany and England and France, and then from
really
those countries back into what is the United States today. So our potatoes are derivative potatoes.
nice.
There's a reason that American potatoes are all very similar. Like the difference between a Yukon Gold and a russet potato is not really that much.
Hmm,
If you go to Peru, they have different kinds of potatoes. Like
really?
they've got potatoes that taste like onions.
We
They've
well,
got potatoes
that's
that are
funny you
bitter,
say that.
potatoes that are sweet. Yeah.
We we've grown potatoes in the backyard before, and it used to drive my wife insane. Like as I'm picking them, if there was like a really small one, I would just eat it. And she's
Uh,
like, "How do you do that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's a little spicier, but it's like it's more.
yeah. Um,
It is like if you just eat a potato, it could be because you're eating dirt also, but
yeah.
it's got a very hardcore flavor if you don't sit there and like wash it and let it sit. Whatever, you
And
just pick it
cook
out of the
it.
ground and eat it. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's got some texture to it too. I
yeah,
mean, it's
good
not just
stuff.
all mealiness.
I'm a fan of
I'm a bit of a
potatoes.
potato farmer myself. The little tiny bit of Irish blood that I have, I guess, comes out front and center because I tell you what, I can grow a potato patch, man.
Or
And
Peruvian blood.
not that I know of, not that I know
Yeah,
of. But
Argentinian.
I haven't done.
Yeah.
Let the reader understand. All right, Amos Coleman again. Even the great Peter lied. We have all fallen short. Yes, yes, indeed, he
Yeah.
did. And
I would
he
say
says,
Peterson was cowardice, not lying.
not in the lie itself.
Yeah, it was
It
just
was certainly
cowardice.
treachery. I mean,
Yeah.
it was treachery for sure.
But it's like,
Um,
dude, it was a little girl, man. Like, dude,
yeah,
you
just
had
own
to
it.
you had to lie to a little girl to say, "Come on, dude, grow some
that
nads."
that is kind of pathetic when you put it that way. Then he says good night. I guess he's heading out.
Yep.
Thanks, Amos. We
Yeah,
appreciate you
appreciate
stopping
it.
by. Always glad to have you along. He's a good dude, Amos Lee Coleman. But that is for those of you who don't know, that is an alt. All right, but I know them. I know who the dude is. He's a good dude.
Ooh,
Uh, Z says Steiner recliner, referring
yeah.
to the takedown. Yes, indeed. Jesse Vanderbilt, Nicene Orthodoxy, and thanks you. Yes, Jesse, appreciate you having along for the ride, and thank you, Sean, for stepping in when I kind of
Yeah.
out spoke in a way I shouldn't have.
When you start acting like this guy here, not
Started
being
acting
careful
like
about your
Owen Strong. Man,
Trinitarian.
uh, don't make that comparison, man. That's painful. That hurts. This is kind of the point that I was getting to earlier. Z says it seems rooftops were private except for kings, and that does seem to be the way that rooftops worked in the ancient world, where it was like all the houses would be about the same level, but then you'd have a
Which is
palace
okay,
that was tall.
but that's my point.
It's like,
If everyone's rooftop is at the same level, then nobody has a rooftop that's hidden, right?
well, because they would
Everyone's
have a
just
wall, so they don't have a parapet, so it's like at least from like chest level down,
so
it's going to be all.
as long as it's like
Yeah.
missionary, you're kind of hiding behind the wall.
Hey, don't have to
Right?
be so blunt there, man. But yeah, I mean, if you're doing something you don't want people to see, whatever that might be, um,
Get low.
seems if it's from chest high down, if you're discussing treason against the king, your neighbors won't see it. But then again, maybe the king will still be able to see it because his palace is seemingly taller than everybody else's. Z here, Central America. Yeah, referring to where potatoes are from. That is correct. Well, actually, Peru is South America proper. But yeah. He says, I read an article about how Europe considered potatoes to be lowly or outright evil because they come out of the ground. But the Irish were like, we'll eat these things.
Yeah.
That's a funny
Mhm.
speculation. There's another story, and this, I think, has a pretty good provenance about the king of Germany wanted his people to eat potatoes because he saw that they were a very cost-effective, calorie-efficient food. And he tried to introduce them, and just the people weren't interested. Right? They had their spätzle and their spargel, and they're like, "Nah, we're good, thanks." So his second plan of attack was he was going to have a garden that was growing potatoes, and he's going to put a big wall around it, and have guards posted around it to keep people from stealing his potatoes. And then on the down low, he told the guards, "Hey, let the people steal the potatoes." And evidently that worked. So people were like, well, if it's good enough that the king's protecting it with soldiers, it's good enough for my table. And so the people started growing potatoes,
man.
either stolen directly from the king's garden or probably just in general, imported grown potatoes. So that's how
Crazy.
potatoes came to be a German staple. Quite a funny story there.
Crazy.
All right. Well, Sean, we are all caught up, and the second half of the show is about fatherhood. So you've got a story to tell, I believe.
Yeah, I'm clearing out my palate here. We've got to rinse after that. Yeah, I've wanted to tell this story for a while. I thought this would be a good week to just go ahead and say it. So the gist of it is that I met my biological father at the age of 28. I am now 36, so I have only known my biological father for about 8 years. So I guess I'll start from the beginning. By the way, it was funny that you're like, oh, I'm just going to say fatherhood is the thing, because it's kind of the opposite of that in a way, but it's essentially the answer to the cliffhanger that I had in the last episode of talking about my two fathers, and neither of which are gay. They're both they are both married,
both very straight, married
women,
to women,
yeah.
kind of a man.
Yeah. Yeah. But they, so growing up, I was the oldest of three. And, parents were married and everything seemed above board, except that I was the only blonde to come out of my father's side. Everyone had like jet black hair. Like everyone had like Elvis Presley pompadours and like that kind of thing going on. And I looked kind of like how your kids look, Jeff, obviously like how my son looks. But I was like towhead blonde. But my mom's side of the family had a lot of blondes. And I actually, to this day, I still look like my uncle, who's my mom's brother. And so that was kind of always what we said was like, okay, well, you just look like that side of the family, right? Which, by the way, if someone tells you that you look like your mom's side of the family, go get a DNA test. If you can't see your father in your own face, go get a DNA test, because that does not exist to where somebody has no trace of their father in them. That's been my experience. And so I had that thought. I would look in the mirror at a very young age, and I'm like, I can see, basically I would say like, I can see my uncle, right? Which is basically like the male version of my mother. I was like, I can see my uncle in there, but man, there's like a hint of some other guy. Who's this? Who is this? Right. And so it's like it's literally the most existential crisis you can have. It's a crisis of the self. Like, what am I? Who am I? Where did I come from? Have I been lied to? And so I had that thought in my head. I don't remember this particular story, but my aunt was telling me that I told my grandfather, I said, I just don't feel like I belong here. And she said that my grandfather came up and was like, you want to hear what this boy just said to me? Like, a very young age, right? Maybe 5 years old, something like that. And so, yeah, the thought was always there. And I was like, man, this is kind of like, it just always kind of nagged at me. And I had asked my mom a couple times. I was like, hey, is there even a chance that someone else is my father? And she's like, how could you even ask me that? Which is such a woman way to act when you get caught.
Are you letting the lead slip right there? She
Well,
got caught.
yeah. So well, okay. Still okay. So going back to I'm like 5 years old, right? So I'm still kind of thinking like something's off, right? And my mom ends up getting caught cheating, and she still denies it to this day. And so my dad was like, they divorced, and so then I was like, well, Mom, you've got a history, right?
Yeah,
Like,
she did it once,
what's
she did it again.
yeah, what's the deal? Or I mean, the logic is if you did it once, you did it before.
Yeah,
because that would be the logic. And so, anyways, this thought's rolling around in my head, and I reached a breaking point when my hairline started receding, and I was like, "That's nobody has that going on. Like, what's the deal with this? I don't look like nobody at this point." And so I went and, to nobody else's knowledge, went and got a DNA test with my dad. Like, we actually went into a DNA place. And remember, I'm 28 years old at this point.
mm-hmm.
And so, like, that's well into adulthood. And so we go in, we do the test, I get the results back, and it's like that, 0 point some small percentage chance, which means no, right? Like when it's yes, it's like 99 point whatever chance, and when it's no, it's like 0 point. So it's never like a perfect 0 or a perfect 100, but what it means.
I mean, when you get something like 25% chance, that's when it's something like, so what is this guy, my uncle? It would have to be something along those lines, right? He's got to be closely related to you, but not your dad. Whereas if the question is dad or not dad, it's like, it's a light on, light off kind of a moment. It's a 1 or a 0.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, call him up, and he had his choice words, and so then call my mom up, and hey, I got it. Well, first I called my grandma, because I actually had my grandma in on it, and she was just like, oh no. Like she was alive at the time. We didn't know she had cancer, but she was immediately she's like, oh, please no, like, this woman's already been so bad, you guys, like,
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And nobody's
and this is her mother, your grandmother?
Yes.
Yeah.
So for her, she, her whole life has just been a desperate fight, or was a desperate fight, to get my mom on, or to get us on my mom's side.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's some other things that when she wasn't really around for a bit, and then she came back in the picture. But yeah, basically, I called grandma, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go tell mom now. And she's like, basically like, try to be nice.
Yeah. So I'll do my best. Here, slut.
Yeah. I'll do my best, grandma.
Yeah.
So called her up, and I waited till my wife was there. She was at work at the time, so I was at school. So I was like full-time school, and we were, my wife and I are fairly newly married, and she's getting thrown into all this. Like, what the heck did I just marry into? And
rednecks, baby. That's why.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, that grandma is the one who has like the hardcore American lineage, like old Virginia, Mayflower people, Revolutionary War people, obviously Confederate veterans. So like that's like her. So it's funny that you say like, oh yeah, rednecks. Like, well, I don't know, maybe that's what's going on, like old Virginia drama. But
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, so where was I? Yeah, I call my mom and I'm like, hey, I went and got a DNA test, and it turns out that, you know, my dad is not my biological father. And she's like, what? That's impossible. So, well, no, actually, it's very possible. In fact, it is the truth. I mean, like I said, I took the
Mm-hmm.
test. I have the results in my hand right now.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
she's like, why would you do that? And this is all over the phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I have my wife here just kind of as a witness, because I'm not going to record it, but I'm like, I want
Mm-hmm.
someone else to hear this.
Mm-hmm.
Like we need to be able to talk about this later. And because my wife knew I was in shambles. I mean, it's just, you know, anyone who knows me knows I'm like I'm a big fan of learning about my heritage and all that kind of. So like for it to be me of all people, it was just like, oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so eventually she was like, oh, you know, it has to be Doug. And we're like, okay, I'm gonna write this name, like whatever information she has right now, like I'm gonna write it down because she might,
Change
you
your
know,
mind later.
lose
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I might lose this information later. And so I'm writing everything down, and she had like nothing. She had like, he used to go back to his hometown on Thanksgiving, and it was in Minnesota. It was, and she had the name of the town, and that was it. And he used to work for the phone company, and that was all she had. And I was like, what? Like, so I call up grandma. Hey, grandma, here's the tea. Here's what's going on. And she's like, oh yeah, I knew Doug. Well, it turns out that this was a boyfriend of my mom's from like way back. Like they
From like
dated
high
for,
school or.
yeah, like they dated
Mm-hmm.
for a while. Like he was a bit older than her, so it was like do you remember? Okay, you weren't a public school guy, but like I think public school guys know the feeling of, you know, like the girl of your dreams driving off with her 26-year-old boyfriend.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
It's
Like,
like, dude,
how do I compete
what?
with that? Like,
Yeah. It's like, how am I supposed to compete with some guy who's been working for 10 years and,
mm-hmm.
has a house and a car? Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Like this dude's a stud. Like, take her,
Yeah.
bro. Like,
Yeah. Or why don't you fish in some other guy's stream? Come on,
yeah.
man.
So I think it was a bit of that going on. But he knew, it was crazy. Like he knew my grandma, and she knew him. Like she knew him very well. And she was like, oh, wow. Like, I guess that makes sense that it would be him. So turns out, you know, anyway, that first phone call ended like Led Zeppelin. Like it went down hard. And so we end up getting a call back from mom, but grandma's with her this time.
Uh-huh.
And so it's more like, you know, she's there to play referee. And she's basically like, okay, yeah, like it makes sense. It would be him and blah, blah, blah. He's the only guy. It has to be him. I'm like, are you sure? Because up until 12 hours ago, like,
Yeah.
there was no other guy. Yeah.
And
Up
it
until you
had
got
to be
called
this
on it.
one guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
Where was I going with this? Basically, it came to the point she was like, you know, he was my boyfriend for a long time, like right before your father, and blah blah blah, and it was a whole thing. But the way the timeline actually worked out was he was an ex-boyfriend, and she said it was a goodbye thing. That was her. I remember that, like, that is etched in my brain. It was a goodbye thing. Oh, cool. Well, for me, it was a hello thing because
that's where I came from.
That's where I said hello. Hello, world.
Wow.
I just thought about it in the moment. That's funny.
That is pretty good. Oh man.
But yeah, that was really what she said. It was a goodbye thing. I'm like, okay, wow. at this
That's not
point.
how
Like
I
I'm not
say
gonna,
goodbye to my friends, but
yeah,
okay.
Slayer, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and then and then what's crazy is like, then she gets married. Uh, I mean, I can tell you the exact date of when the wedding was and ever, but like she was pregnant, like she's visibly pregnant in the photos, and like that's why they moved up the wedding day was
Hmm.
because she was pregnant. So I mean that's come on, mom, like don't lie to me. I know where babies come from. I know what conception rate is among humans. It's not like it is with elephants where it's like whatever amount a year and a month or whatever. Um, so we know what the timeline is. I know that you guys were married 4th of July 1988. Like I'm not stupid. I know what was going on. Um,
Hmm.
so anyways, um,
So what was the relationship with your dad? Not your father, but your dad. Like how did this affect that relationship?
um, I mean, what can you say? I mean, like off the rip, he's like, "Oh, this doesn't change anything between us," but I mean, mentally for me, it does, right? Like,
Hmm.
not like I love you less or whatever, but obviously, there's a different kind of way of thinking.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, adopted kids talk about this feeling. Um, you know, it's a common thing. Everyone says like the same thing. Like there's like, well, some people don't want to know who that other person is, but they acknowledge like, yeah, there is that other aspect of it. Like this guy isn't my dad in every way that he could be, right? Like you can say mentally, emotionally, he's there, whatever, but like there is that biological aspect. Um, it's an incredible test case in like nature versus nurture,
Yeah.
um, because
And there really is something to that. I mean, in the group chat, some of the guys were talking about this earlier, and I'm sure you chimed in at one point, but one guy was talking about how his own son is just such a mirror of him.
yeah,
And there was a bit of back and forth about some people, is this genetic or is this, hereditary or is it nurture? Is it
yeah,
nature or is it nurture? And I come down pretty hard on the it's nature. It's
yeah,
genetic, it's hereditary,
yeah,
and the reason that I do that is two things: my younger brother and myself. So we grew up. Well, we didn't grow up, but like we were little kids in Germany. My dad was in the United States Army. He was stationed over there. And so we didn't really know our American family. We came over like twice in 6 years to visit, something like that. And they were flybys. They were like, in, get out, 10-minute adventure, right? And we didn't really know these people. It was just like some people that my dad talked to on one weekend. And yeah, he really was fond of them, but we didn't remember their names. We didn't remember who they were. And there wasn't this impressive feeling of, oh, these are important people because you're related to them. So we didn't know our American family. And I met my father's brother, my uncle, when I was, a very little baby, about 2 years old, and then went off to Germany and never saw him again until I was about 11 or 10. Um, and yet, when we kind of met each other for the first time, I was 11 years old. I'm a budding teenager, and here I meet this man who's in his 20s. His mid 20s, early 20s. He's not much older than me. He's much younger than my dad. And so that had something to do with it too. It's like I'm looking at myself in 10 years' time. And I think he's actually only, yeah, he's something like 10 years older than me. And so I'm looking at this guy who's only about 10 years older than me. And he's looking at me and he's like, that was me 10 years ago. That was me in high school. That was me as a teenager. And I remember distinctly this one time he and I jump in the truck and we're going to run to Lowe's and grab some stuff. And as we're walking side by side, he just looks over at me and he goes, "What the heck, man? You even walk like me." And I didn't even realize it, but it was true. I had the exact same gait as him. I held my head the same way. Like when people say something bizarre and I kind of cock one eyebrow and I do that thing, he does that, and I didn't learn it from him. It's just
Yeah.
it was a thing that I do. My dad doesn't do that. My dad doesn't give that
Hmm.
silly kind of
Yeah.
face like that.
Mm.
I never met a man in my life who did that until I met my uncle, and he does it.
Yeah.
And where did that come from? Well, it came from
Yeah.
it's in here.
Yeah.
It came from the blood. It's like the other instance that was really strange was my younger brother, who is just an absolute clone of my great grandfather. My great grandfather died when my mom was a teenager. Before she got married, before she had kids, my younger brother is her third child. So no connection whatever. We lived in Germany. We came back to the US. We're hanging out in East Texas with my mom's redneck family. And the old folks are sitting at the table playing dominoes, and Jeremy kind of busts in the room. That's my younger brother. Uh, busts in the room and just kind of blurts something out. I don't remember what it was, but like everybody at the table froze and they all just looked at him. It was like they saw a ghost. And one woman, my great aunt, literally was shaking and she said, "That's Otto. That's George." George wasn't his real name, but he went by George. His name was Otto Kerboski. And it they thought like he had been reincarnated or something because it was so on the nose just how much like my great grandfather my little brother was. And it was bizarre for me because I'm a teenager and I'm kind of watching these people play dominoes. I didn't know how to play dominoes at the time, so I'm kind of trying to pick it up from these old folks, and just to watch them all have like a communal heart attack. It was a sight to behold. I mean, it was just incredible. And it's like, well, where did that come from? And sure enough, that my grandmother walked me into to my great grandmother's room where her wedding photo was hanging on the wall, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, that's Jeremy with my grandma. I mean, that's what it looked like, right? Because my grandmother looks just like her mom. I was like, that looks like my younger brother with my grandmother in the 1940s,
Mm.
standing there in a U.S. Army uniform and a wedding dress, and it was really bizarre to see that. And it's not just appearance; like he doesn't just look like him, but it was the whole action, right? These people had seen my brother before. I mean, we had just freshly come from Germany and they were visiting. So it wasn't like they hadn't seen him before, but it was like his whole demeanor, the way that he was roughhousing and just busting in the room and cutting up a rug and just really acting out in a wild way. And they were just absolutely shocked at the way that he was just like his great grandfather, a man that he never met.
Mm. Where was I? Oh, then so anyways, the hunt was on at this point, right?
Hmm.
Because
So who is this Doug guy?
yeah, well, there was this brief moment when I got the results where I hadn't made the connection that there was an actual biological father,
Hmm.
because like
You just felt like an
you
orphan.
see it. Yeah, well, you see the results and you're like, I guess mentally I was kind of like, oh well, you know he's not my father. And okay, well, I the next thought was not who is, it was just like, that's the thought. So but
Hmm.
I didn't even think about it until he had said on the phone, he's like, so are you going to try to find this guy? And I was like, well, dang, I mean, up until this moment I didn't even realize there was another guy. I mean, I didn't think I was
Hmm.
Anakin Skywalker or something, but I just the connection hadn't been made. So,
Hmm.
then at this point, we've got the name. Grandma has affirmed that this is a real person. So, there's the hunt itself is a crazy story, because my mom was like, oh, I saw him. He was, because they live in the East Bay area in California.
Hmm.
And they I saw him walking around, and I think he was homeless or something like that. For whatever reason, we listened to her, And we went off of that, and we had like a private investigator at one point looking for this guy, but they're like, he's nowhere around here. What are you talking? We can't find him. And so we couldn't find him.
And she might not have been lying. That just might have been a guilty conscience, seeing a
She
hobo and being
Yeah.
freaking out.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, but it was. She said she had seen him before we had brought all this up. I mean, I truly believe in her mind she was like, I'm in the clear. This will never be found out. But clearly, I was smarter than that. So, like I said, the hunt was on. We're going. Oh my goodness. It was so wild. My grandma, she was like in her late 60s at this point or whatever. She's like driving around town. Like we got this list of people whose name matches. So his name is Doug Johnson. And
which is
like, Joe Cadiddlehopper. Like, I mean, like it's a made up name, right? So like we're like looking for that, and everyone's name is that. And we end up finding, this is a true story. It's so ridiculous. My grandma, she goes and knocks on this guy's door, and he doesn't answer. And then she goes to the next door neighbor. She sees the next door neighbor there. Hey, I'm looking for Doug Johnson. And he's like, well, I don't want to give his information out. I don't want to, because she was like, can I get his number? Like, I really want to find this guy. No, I don't know, man. I mean, that's kind of weird. And we were like, why is he being weird like that? We end up making contact. My grandma ends up having like a 2-hour conversation with this guy who is not the guy we're looking for.
Yeah.
But he turns out to be
his neighbor.
Yeah. His name actually is Doug Johnson. Turns out to be the keyboardist for Loverboy.
Funny.
So my grandma had like this 2-hour conversation with this guy. And by the way, it's so crazy because like there was a moment where I was like, is my father the keyboardist from Loverboy? That'd be so cool because like I freaking love Loverboy, right? Like especially like in the opening. If I ever actually made contact with him myself, I would have to tell him, it was like, dude, your opening keyboard on Turn Me Loose is just incredible. If you don't, do you know the song Turn Me Loose?
No, I don't.
Oh my goodness, dude. It's so good. There's a scene, I know I'm getting way off track, but there's a scene in the movie Crank, which is like one of my favorite movies. I know it's so like my all-time favorite movies are such goofy movies, but Crank is really great. There's a scene with that song and with just the keyboard intro. It's just amazing. Anyway, so that was not the guy, turns out. Not the keyboardist for Loverboy. But if anyone knows how to contact him, let him know. We did end up finding him, and the true Doug Johnson. And so anyways, yeah, so we basically, I got to a point where I said, you know what? I'm just going to not listen to Mom. She's probably crazy. I used to say that she has Ozzy syndrome, but I feel bad saying that now because he's dead. But like she really, like, she fried her brain on drugs, clearly. And so she's not there. And so I said, you know what? I'm not listening to her advice anymore, where she thinks she saw him or whatever. So we ended up finding his second marriage, the marriage record for his current marriage. We found it, and it was in Washington State. And through that, I ended up finding him. He had moved back to Minnesota, and we ended up finding him. And but all I had was an address. Like, there was no phone number or nothing. And it was like maybe 3 possible, and 2 of them were good leads. And we're like, it's got to be one of them. And so my wife was like, why don't you just send him a letter? And I was like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Like, I don't know why, but I have his address. I can just send him a letter, right?
Yeah.
So of course we have to notify him in the most dramatic fashion possible, right? So
certified mail.
No, it wasn't certified. No, but I wrote a letter
And delivered by a lawyer. You have been
yeah,
served.
yeah, and I made sure. Yeah, we want that back child support, buddy. You owe 28 years of child support. The
Surprise.
yeah, but no, I sent a letter, and of course I put my phone number in there, so we didn't just have to go back and forth on letters. That'd be ridiculous. So,
yeah, what is this? 1825.
Yeah, sent him the letter, and he. Now this part of the story I know from him telling it, but basically he had said like a week before that there was someone on the radio who was telling a story like that, and him and his brother were like, do you have a kid floating around? He's like, no. Do you have a kid floating around? He's like, no, I don't think so. And so then a week after having that conversation, this letter comes in, and he's like,
well, turns out,
and he goes and tells his brother, he's like, you won't believe what the letter I just got. And he's like, should I buy cigars for this? Like, what do I do? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I gotta find you a good aged 28-year-old cigar.
Yeah, there you go. And so he sends me a text. He's like, hey, I got your letter. And oh, by the way, in the letter, I was like, here's what I know about the Doug Johnson I'm trying to find. Like, I know, he lives in this city in Minnesota, and worked for the phone company, and, you would have known my mom, and I gave my mom's name, and it would have been around these years and whatever. And, I got a text, whatever amount of days later, and he was like, you described me. I'm the guy. I know who your mom is. Like, that's me. And
I know your mom. I knew your mom.
Yeah, I knew your mom real well. No, he did say on the phone,
mom in a KJV kind of a way.
Yeah, in a Isaac and Rebecca on a rooftop.
Yeah.
No, but he did say this though, because he was like, oh yeah, your mom, she was a real what did he say, like a breath of sunshine, or a real piece of sunshine. Like he adored her. He just thought she was great, but she could apparently, even back then, just couldn't stay faithful. So he was like, I gotta cut you loose. And but not before giving one last parting gift.
I guess not without saying goodbye.
Yeah. And so so we connected, and he was really cool, and he's like, hey, he had just retired, and he was like, I was living in Southern California at the time I was going to school, and he said, hey man, I'm going to drive more or less past that way, and I can just go a little bit off the route, and I can meet with you. And I was like, dude, yes, like, absolutely. We were both very much like, I want to meet you. I want to get to know you. Like, there was nothing weird. Like some people's stories are that, no, I don't know, man. Like, I'm a different man now, or, there's always something like that. But he was very, very receptive. He was like, I want to get to know you. And I was very much like, yeah, tell me everything. Right. So we meet at, we went to Outback Steakhouse or something like that, and some restaurant, right? And we're hanging out there, and we're talking, and it was funny because it was in winter. Actually, it was New Year's Eve. Yeah, I think it was like New Year's Eve. It was something like that. And so at one point I was like, I'm getting off the road, like going back home. But it was cold. And so at one point, I took my sweater off because I was like heating up. And he's like, oh yeah, you're built like a Johnson. Because he's from Minnesota. That's how he talks. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, that's what he's like, your upper body is Johnson to the max. Mm-hmm. And I was like, really? Like, he's like, oh yeah, he was just telling me everything stuff I didn't know about myself. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like
all those things that didn't add up when you were a kid.
Yeah. And he was like, just tell me all these stories. And I was like, dude, like that, it made a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. And he was telling me about like military history in the family. I mean, obviously I have, Confederate history on the other side, but like from when I was a little kid, I was like, it wasn't even I want to be in the military. It was, like I'm in third grade and looking at pictures of, I don't know, we're learning about World War II, whatever it was. And I don't know, would that have been third grade? I was very young, but I remember seeing military pictures and saying, oh, when I'm in the military, then I'll be doing whatever. Like I will look like these pictures, whatever. So like it was always a foregone conclusion. Like I'm going to be in the military one day. And it made sense because there's all this military history in the family, and I don't know, it's just everything made sense. And so that was really cool meeting him. I have a
And
I have
how much did you look like him? Like you talked
Oh,
about
dude, that
earlier
was that was the other thing. So I totally skipped over the craziest part. So I had sent the letter, and then I was still looking on Facebook. I was like, maybe I can find something on Facebook. Boomers love Facebook. I'll try to find something. And because of I'm trying to get the timeline right. I sent the letter, but I was still looking on Facebook, and we ended up finding his wife's first name is an interesting spelling, and I found her profile, or what I thought might be her profile, and in that was a picture of her with a man without a caption or anything. And I saw that picture and I said, that's the guy. And my wife was like, well, we don't know that. Like, honey, we don't know that. Don't get your hopes up. I said, I don't care what you think. That's the guy. That is that face. Remember when I said, there's a face in there that I've never met. And it's there when I look in the mirror, and I don't know who that guy is. Like, if I take me and I subtract my uncle, there's this other guy. Who is that guy? And I kind of had a picture in my head. And when I saw him, I said, that's him. I know that's him. I don't care what you think. That's got to be the guy. And so it turned out it was him. And it was funny. Like, we just spent a lot of that time. They had gotten because they were driving across the country. So they had gotten like a motel room or something. So we were kind of like hanging out in there for a bit and talking. And we were just kind of sitting there, like kind of looking at each other, like, you know what I mean? Like, where you're just kind of like, what? Like, do you do this with your face? Or we were doing all those things with each other. Now he has another son and daughter that I've never met. I've talked on the phone with my half brother, and they were saying like, oh, he looks just like him. And but it's funny because when I look at pictures, I look more like him than his other son does. And I think it's because like it just happened to be this weird thing where he's almost completely Scandinavian, if not completely. And that was another thing I put in the letter. I said, I've done a DNA test because I was trying to use that to find somebody that, I was hoping to find a cousin and just say like, dude, do you know this guy? And in the letter, I was like, okay, my mom and my grandma have done these DNA tests as well. I would guess that you are almost 100% Norwegian and maybe some Swedish. And he like, that was another thing in the letter. He was like, yeah, that's to a T, because he's like old Minnesota, right? Like Minnesota from whenever Minnesota was first, we're talking like 1840s or 50s, whatever, how far back that goes. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I've since, I got a good relationship with him. He still does his cross country trips. So when he's coming through, he stops here in Texas. Cause he goes and sees his kids, and now I'm just another kid on the stop on the circuit. And, who knows, maybe another one will pop up before too long. But no, he came when my son was going to be born. He came to watch my daughter. He's very, very cool. Like it's been cool. And like I said, like I learned so much about myself just talking with him. So it is weird. I don't know what else to say, but now it just feels like, oh yeah, that's my situation. So people love hearing that story. So I wanted to tell it. I knew at some point I would want to just tell the whole story. And every time somebody's heard it, like I'll be in the room, they're like, bro, can you tell me like what was that like? Right? Like everyone wants to know, because you only hear about that on TV or whatever. I would like I would just like more people to be open about it. We have a mutual friend. I'm not going to say his name on the air, but he also has a biological father floating around. He was adopted. So a slightly different situation. Whereas I didn't, like, basically it was like I was adopted, but I didn't know I was adopted. And the people who adopted me didn't know that I was adopted. Like, it was kind of the situation, right? Like, so I've tried to inspire people like, dude, give it a shot, right? Not everyone's going to have a great situation like that. I get it. But for me, it was very fulfilling. If not just to know those weird quirks about myself, like weird things that my body does where, he's like, oh yeah, you got to do this to fix it. I was like, oh, okay. I don't know how, what do you even say to something like that? Right. Like, cause that's what it is. Like you don't understand yourself when you're in that position where you're being raised by people who are not your biological parents. Or even if it was like a grandma and grandpa, there would still be that connection. Like your parents died, now you're raised by your grandparents or something like that. There would still be that biological connection. But when you're raised by people like I was, where, it's a loving family, I'm not discounting that. But I was raised entirely by my dad's side of the family, other than my grandma. But she lived in the Bay Area, so to drive out to see us, which she did, but it wasn't like she was there every day, like the rest of the family. So I was literally raised, like at least 95% of the time by people I was not actually related to, and it just felt weird. Like I said, when I was really little kid, it was I feel like I don't belong here. Or I would say I feel like I belong with mom's side of the family. Like I feel like I'm with those, I'm more like those guys than my brother and sister are. And for obvious reasons, that's true.
Yeah, but in a way that you didn't understand at the time.
Yeah, and so that's kind of because it was funny when I my aunt was telling her boyfriend about it. She's like, Sean went and got a DNA test, whatever, and his response was like, this again? Like, because apparently it was, what I mean? It was just a thing I was always talking about, and I didn't realize I talked about it so much, but to them it was all the time. Because it's a crazy thing to them. For me, it's just how I live. But then they were like, oh yeah, and he's actually been right this whole time. People are just like, what? Like, get out of here. So yeah, it's I guess that comes up with a lot of conversations that people will have about race, which is only tangentially connected to this, but like your biological people, your kinsmen according to the flesh, understand a part of you in a way that no one else will.
Yeah.
And I think that, as unfortunate as it is, when you have what's called, I think the technical term is like a non-paternal event, which is, I think that's the technical word, where it's like basically the guy who we thought was the guy isn't the guy. That's the technical term for it, I believe. But anyways, yeah, for me it was a very positive experience overall. I mean, all things considered, right? And I just encourage people to look into that and to know your own history. Like, I would have never guessed in a million years. Before I had trained my physiognomy senses to be so keen, I would have never looked at myself and said, like, dude, you're mostly Norwegian. I would have never thought that in a million years.
Yeah, it's funny. There's that one guy on Facebook who calls himself Hey Buddy, and he's just as Norwegian can be, right? And he starts every video with just by saying Hey Buddy, and then just gives kind of little bits of guy encouragement, like, "Hey, buddy, I know the world's bad right now, but you need to get out there and you need to do something productive with your life. Hey, buddy, don't give up. I know things are all stacked against you. Just a ray of positivity." And his replies are on Twitter, if you follow him, are just absolutely savage. And dude, that guy looks like he could be your brother. And
oh yeah.
and
Is this the guy you've sent me before?
Yeah. I mean, I tagged him one time, and I said,
Like,
"Sean, this guy looks just like you."
Oh, he does too. And
mhm.
I think we followed each other after that. But I was just
Yeah,
like, dude,
and he's got the receding hairline and everything.
his is quite a bit more.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, I think he's going full bald, whereas yours went north, but it took a parking.
yeah,
It stopped on the way.
It was funny because my wife was like appalled that I would say that this guy looks like me, but I was like, no, honey, you don't understand. Like,
Yeah.
you know what was the trip to? When I was in, I keep saying third grade because like third grade was the last grade at one of my elementary schools, and then I went to a totally different one. So
hmm
like those two parts of elementary school are very distinct, but
hmm
somewhere in that first part, so second or third grade or something, there was a kid who was in like kindergarten or first, and man, every time I would see him, it was like a running joke with us, like, dude, why do we look so much alike? And so like we would see each other and kind of do like like he saw me again, like I don't know, like how kids are.
Yeah,
But
do like a double take.
yeah, but it was it's crazy when you see that.
hmm
There's been a couple times where I'll see somebody and I'm like, dude, like we have to be related.
Yeah.
Everyone does that to an extent. I bet if I went to Minnesota, I'd get that a lot more.
hmm
Maybe not Minneapolis these days, but
Yeah, when I went off to college, there was a guy who was, and this was early days of Facebook, 2012. So still a lot of people who are real new to Facebook, and there was some guy who showed up in my feed just randomly, and it was like a drunken party, not like a frat party, but like just country boys hoedown, kind of a drinking out of red Solo cups. And I'm scrolling and I see this picture and I look at it. It's like, that's me. And I don't know anybody else in the picture, but it's not a high quality photo, so there's a little bit of that going on. But I'm looking at it, I'm like, I have no memory of this at all. I have no idea where this is, and the person who shared it, he's tagging somebody that I'm friends with, but not that I've ever gone to a party with. And I'm like, man, who is this guy in the picture? So I did my Facebook sleuthing and I found him, and it's a guy who looked a lot like me, but it was definitely not me. And but it was just this weird thing where it's like, I just ran across a face and I was like, dude, that's me in this one particular pose, this one particular face he was pulling. And kind of strange. And he is about my same age too. But yeah, every once in a while you run across that and it's like, man, we've got to be related somehow, right? I mean, that kind of thing doesn't happen randomly, right?
Yeah.
If I saw a picture of a random Southeast Asian, I would never be like, "Oh man, dude, that looks just like me."
Yeah.
But when you see somebody who's of German extraction, who's got, the square jaw and the tall face and the Dorito shaped body, and you see that and you're like, dude, that looks just like me.
Yeah.
There's some relationship there, uh, left in this case undiscovered, but it really is a thing that, there's no way in the world that guy and I are not at least like fifth or sixth cousins,
Yeah.
distantly related.
We were
Hmm.
talking about the the other night, the Swedish omelet, which which is, it's such a funny thing. So an OMLT is like something military, something training or something like that. But it's like a forward operating base type situation where you're training the local Afghan people. So that's what an omelet is. That's,
Yeah.
we call it an omelet.
Operational mentoring and liaison team.
There you go.
NATO
Oh,
equivalent
I
of the
was way
United
off.
States embedded training teams, and we're active in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So it was one of those, and it was the Swedish military. So, when we would go through Sheboygan, it was, oh, we're gonna, if we stop at the Swedish omelet, that's what it was. And but yeah, it was, we were talking about it because they were like, oh, the Americans are here, put on some steak,
Hmm.
because they would just eat like crackers and cheese and whatever
Hmm.
crap.
Hmm.
But
But then when the Americans showed up, they pulled out the nice food.
yeah, slaughter the
We
fatted
got
calf.
company.
The Americans are
Yeah.
here. But
Hmm.
even with those guys, it was, I was saying how funny it is that literally all their stuff is IKEA.
Yeah.
Like that's not a joke. Like that's not a stupid joke. That was a real thing. And the but then when so I felt kind of a closeness with those guys, but then like we actually had a couple convoys with Norwegian soldiers, and we actually stayed overnight with them. So you sit and talk with them, and they all know English, thankfully, because they know we're not going to learn Norwegian. Um, and those guys, man, they were like, even they were just kind of like, "Are you Norwegian?" Because that's always a thing with Americans, right? Like, what type of American are you? You know what I mean? Like you can
Yeah.
say, you know what I mean? Like yeah, we get it. Your ancestors have been here for 100 years, whatever. But what were they? Where were they before that? And so that's that was a weird connection too, where it was like, man, I do feel like. And then like a weird thing when I really got into, when I learned all of that, and then like I really got into like Viking stuff, right? Like, and then like the show Vikings is really awesome. So I was like, and it's somewhat based on real people, but anyways, like the real,
Well, the later seasons got a bit
yeah, they
DEI.
got,
Yeah.
you might be thinking of there was a second show where it was like a black female was some Viking chieftain that
Hmm.
was actually just like an actual Viking dude. In reality, it wasn't like a black woman.
Yeah. Not a woman.
That was a second.
Not a
Yeah,
man.
I want
Yeah.
to say that was like Vikings Valhalla or something like that. That wasn't the original series.
Hmm.
So the original series is pretty good. But anyways, the real guy, Ragnar Lothbrok, he actually was a real guy. Like one of the few things that he's described as is having an upturned nose. Like apparently as a Norwegian thing. And I was like, where does that come from? Because it definitely comes from my mom's dad's side. And like when I look at that guy, I'm like, that is me. That's another guy that I look at and I'm like, that's I never knew the guy. He died when I was very young. But I've seen pictures of him and I'm like, it's one of those things again. Like even of the brother, because like a picture of him with like his brothers and sisters, whatever. Even then, I'd be like, that's the particular guy that I know for a fact that's the guy that I descend from. So it's just you'll always, I guess if you're a mentally normal and stable person, like there will always be, I say that to qualify what I'm about to say, is that there will always be that empty space in your heart if you don't understand where you come from on a biological level.
Mm-hmm.
There's things that you have to know. You know what else was a trip? This was funny. When I was like 13 or whatever, I started going to church, and my grandma is like, well, what church you go to? I said, it's Southern Baptist. And she said, oh, we're Southern Baptist. I was like, I don't know who we is, because I wasn't Southern Baptist until like about a month ago. So
Yeah.
and her dad was a deacon in the Southern Baptist church, and so like that was a big thing, like coming out, all this stuff. But as you know, we've talked about this, like looking into my own family history, suddenly it's like everybody's a Lutheran.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally everyone past 4 generations ago. You know, I'm finding all these people buried in Lutheran cemeteries, going back to like baptism records at the Lutheran church all the way in Germany. Some Lutheran church out of Norway and Sweden. Those just happen to be the places that the Lutheran church was big in, and places where I mostly come from. And it's a trip looking back at that and being like, did nurture have anything to do with who I became, or was it literally just all nature? You know, it makes you wonder, like, why was I the only of my siblings who, when we went to church, we weren't raised in a church, but why was I the only one who stuck around for it? Was it all this Lutheran blood that I didn't even know I had until I was 28, or I guess even more recent than that, because I didn't know that they were all Lutherans. I knew they were all Norwegian, whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
it's weird, dude. It really is. Like it's such a big change, and it's not like you change your personality, but it's how you understand your personality. This is my guy here, my doppelganger.
This is a different
That's
guy.
not the same guy, but I can see it,
buddy. But
I can
there's
see
some
it.
similarities
Yeah,
there.
sure.
I'm looking at that license plate. I think that's a Minnesota license plate, if my eyes are not deceiving me.
What is? I have to look up one.
So this is somebody that Z sent in. He said this is Sean's other brother, and probably some guy that he found on YouTube that he watches, and just remarking that, look, this guy looks a lot like Sean.
I can see it.
There's some similarities. I think he looks less like.
That does look like Pennsylvania. I think that is the one that it is.
Is that a Pennsylvania plate? Yeah.
Which, by the way, I have a ton of family out of Pennsylvania that I just realized
could be actually related to you then.
Very, very early settlers of Pennsylvania. They were German.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking up what a Pennsylvania license plate looks like. That does look like Pennsylvania. Yeah.
With the
Good
blue
call.
on top and the yellow on bottom.
Good call, Z. You're on it. You know what else is a trip? So, as anyone who knows me knows that I am an A's fan, and the A's, of course, come from Philadelphia originally. So I've always thought it was funny. Like if you trace the A's history, that's really my migration history on one particular line. So I always wonder, like,
Pennsylvania out to California.
Yeah, wouldn't that be a trip? Like, if I had like
genetically predisposed to a baseball team?
Yeah, like I had like an ancestor at the like 1911 World Series or something out in Shibe Park. That'd be a trip.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
how would you know?
It's a very strange thing. It's a strange world we live in.
There was a guy on one of the early American Idols. Like he was one of the bad singers on one of the early American Idol seasons. And bro, when I came back to school that next day, people were like, dude, this guy looked just like you on American Idol. It was so bad because not everyone in that line actually goes before like Simon and Randy and Paulo. Like they don't all go in front of them. They get screened beforehand. And what's funny about that is like, obviously the people screening them beforehand are like, oh, this guy's good. You should hear him sing. But they're also obviously saying, dude, you got to see this.
Yeah, this guy will make good TV.
Yes,
like,
yeah.
This
they're
guy's
like,
not a
bro.
good singer. This guy is like so cringe that it'll bump the ratings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, yeah, he was one of those guys. Showed up. If I could ever find the clip, it is funny to look at that. When people, because no one ever shows you like a flattering person, right? No one's ever like,
dude, I was walking in the park the other day and I saw somebody who looked just like you. It actually was a dog, but it looked just like you.
Yeah. The back end looked a lot like your mother.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Just so reminiscent.
Yeah.
Oh,
actually, I did hear somebody said that you look like a Chad version of Frasier's brother. Well, I don't watch the show, but I looked it up who it was.
Yeah, I never watched the show, but I've seen bits of it, and I don't know. It's I mean, not a
it wasn't
not a bad comparison.
It wasn't super
there are
on
some
the nose.
similarities, but yeah, certainly some of his mannerisms and the way that he talks, it's like, man, I definitely can see some of that, but I don't think that's the German part of my heritage, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, hello.
The similarities there, people in Hollywood come from a certain persuasion. I've got a little bit of that going on.
Do they? But I've been assured.
Just very, what is it called? High performance people,
Yeah.
Or people that perform high. I forget how it goes.
Yeah. It's just, it's good German engineering. That's what it is.
Anyhow. All right. Well, let's, we've been going for a while. Let's close out with comments. I think we've only just got one comment here from Z. He was talking about the guy that he just sent that picture in. He says, I think it's closer to Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I looked it up. That's Pennsylvania for sure.
Yeah, and then he says, it's Sam from Scrappy Industries. Good show about 18-wheelers and heavy equipment. Sounds fun. I like my boy's big into heavy equipment, and Diesel Creek is just about his favorite YouTube channel. We don't really watch TV, but I'll watch YouTube videos with my kids. And
dude, so this was funny. Like, I could tell that your kids don't watch TV because when they were over, so he had all 5 kids over at my house the other day, and we, my daughter has maybe not the most severe autism, but severe enough to where we have to do certain things to like even keep her functioning throughout the day. One of them is just kind of having the TV in the background. Like, she'll literally like not be right, and then we'll put it on, and then she'll ignore it and play with her toys and have a whole conversation. Like, the toys are talking to each other and they're fighting or whatever they're doing.
But she needed that background noise.
It has to be on in case she's like, okay, I need a break from this. I need to look. So we'll always have something on. We watch these mostly Korean shows is what she's into. So like the Baby Shark, like the popular version of Baby Shark comes out of Korea. And we're watching something in that vein, or we had it on, and like all of your kids were just like, what? Like, they had never seen a TV before. What? Like one of your daughters, like one of the, I think the oldest daughter was like this close, like just like what? Like, look at the TV. I'm like,
yeah, never been exposed to this kind of weapons grade attention grabbing before.
Yeah. It is pretty decent shows. I was watching Power Rangers with my son earlier today. I'm trying to get him into like not those like goofy cartoons, whatever. But like Power Rangers always had good morals and stuff. Like as cheesy as it was.
So what you're saying is you're not having your son watch Captain Planet.
No,
The
not Captain
entire Earth is
Planet.
your siblings. You know?
Yeah,
You
that's
don't need a
awful.
family. The entire Earth are your siblings.
No, but you know what? Power Rangers. If you, I don't remember. Did you ever watch it when you were?
Yeah, that was one of the few shows that I actually watched a decent bit. It was Power Rangers, Blue's Clues, and Bear in the Big Blue House.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, when I was a little kid, watched a little bit of TV, but Power Rangers was and Teletubbies, but that one always freaked me out.
Yeah.
Teletubbies, you know, they have a reputation as being, you know, creepy and weird now.
Yeah.
But like when I was a little kid, I thought Teletubbies was creepy and weird. Like they terrified me.
Well, I was like,
and the baby in the sun always freaked me out the most.
Yeah. I was like 5 or 6 when Power Rangers started its initial run. So like I was the audience.
Yeah.
Like I was the audience they were looking for. And we would watch it over at my babysitter's house, and she had the rabbit ears on the TV with the tinfoil. And, you know, we'd have to take turns like holding it to get the best picture of it. We'd watch Power Rangers like that. And, but you know what? I knew it instinctively at the time, but now looking back at it, because it's like all on Netflix now. And I'm watching it, and like, dude, like Jason, the original Red Ranger, is like an absolute Chad. Like he's like yoked out, dude. Like he is a super fit dude, and he's always like doing martial arts and stuff, and he's just like the cool leader guy. And like, so there was that, like to see that as a kid is just, it's good for a kid to see something like that. Like the hero isn't a DEI hire.
He's heroic.
Like, yeah, but like his closest friend was
hero.
His closest friend was the Black Ranger, which is funny because he was also the only Black Ranger. So like that's always the funny thing.
Weird coincidence.
Yeah. But yeah, and that the Yellow Ranger was the Asian woman. So like that was
kind of on the nose, wasn't it?
Yeah, but then like I was because I'll just skip ahead to when the Green Ranger shows up, and like Tommy is just another Chad. Like he's just this Chad dude. And then like, you know, the Pink Ranger, Kimberly, was like every boy's first crush. Like that's kind of yeah. And like she's all smitten with him because he's a Chad and whatever. What is this real?
Dude,
we got some interesting comments coming in.
Some deep lore here.
Did you see in the news a couple years ago when Tommy killed a guy with a sword? Pretty sure it was ruled self-defense. Well, I saw a couple of years ago when he killed himself, but which was, man, dude, that was a gut wrench, dude. When
life imitates art, imitates life.
Yeah, I didn't hear about this with him killing a guy with a sword, but yeah, it was just like, it was really looking back, it's interesting that it was like the last gasp of like American greatness, as far as like kids shows, because
I never knew what the names of the characters were because I'm a bit younger than you, and I was just watching it for the fight, you know, the karate fight, and I too just loved the Green Ranger. Like he was my favorite. And there's this weird thing where blue's always been my favorite color. And like as a kid, I would always gravitate toward the blue character. And like every kid's show had like a red hero and a blue sidekick. But you know, in Power Rangers, I was all about the green dude. That was my favorite. And my older brother, he had kind of a similar thing going on, but his favorite color was green. And so we had this rare kind of camaraderie over liking the green Power Ranger better than the other ones. Yeah. So just kind of a funny thing from way back, man. That's bringing back some old memories.
Well, it was, you know, like you were saying, like you're a bit younger, but when I was growing up, you know, it was it was in its initial run. It wasn't there wasn't reruns of it.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, Green Ranger losing his powers and then like coming back and like this big announcement that this new White Ranger is actually Tommy again, and like it's this huge thing, and like all of that was a surprise. Like it was like we were on the edge of our seats, bro. Like it really was like everyone was into it. Everyone at school was into it. So it's just cool. Like try to watch that with my son because it's live action first of all. So it's not like a cartoon. So I feel like somehow that makes it, a
more
cooler
mature.
thing. Yeah. More. Yeah. Maybe a little bit, but it's funny because that's, they always did that with shows for little kids. Like, here's the teenagers, so they're older than you. It feels like they're infinitely older than you, but they're not adults. So they're still kids, right?
But they're big kids.
But you look up to them because they're the cool, bigger kids. And so, I hope my son watches this and becomes a Chad. And
yeah, well, that was one of the things Power Rangers did for me as a kid, is it made me want to be fit. Like, they're on the downtime when they're talking about stuff, they're like always, standing on their head or doing stretches or this kind of stuff. And so, or doing push-ups. And like, I, as a little kid, like that was when I first decided I was going to stand on my head, was because I saw the Power Rangers were standing on their heads, and it was part of their fitness routine. So I decided to learn how to stand on my head, and I got to where I could do it without giving myself a headache, which was kind of cool.
I'm looking for a good picture of Jason looking yoked out. Oh, that is a good one. There we go. Because I'm trying to show people what I'm talking about. Like, this is a... how do I do this? Let me share this. Because you're right. Like, there is a, like, oh, it's cool to be fit kind of thing. Am I sharing it? Or is it... There we go. Like, dude's got some guns. Like, this is a... like they actually were teenagers. They weren't like adults pretending to be teenagers, which was the thing back in like the 80s and stuff, where it would, like in the 90s, they actually had these teenagers doing it. And like this dude was the guy that everyone wanted to be, of course, until Tommy showed up, and then everyone wanted to be Tommy. So. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of drama that goes into why he got kicked off the show, and that it's interesting stuff. I'm not going to get into it now, but what is this? A different Power Ranger from a later series definitely did kill his roommate with a sword. Well, we'll have to get the dirty details on that. I didn't watch it past that. I never got to I think the next thing was like Xeno or Neo or something, then Turbo or whatever. I never got to those ones. I was just in the dinosaur ones, and then what did they call it after, like the ninja ones that I guess they got, but like where it was a whole thing.
And it was about cool my cutoff too. I remember the dinosaur ones pretty well. I watched the ninja ones a little bit, and then after that, it kind of went off my radar.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it lost a lot of its original pizzazz. Because they ran out of original stock footage from the original Japanese show. Because that's what it was. It was They would, like, all the fight scenes were just the Japanese show from like the 70s or something like that. And so that's why, of course, they had like they're fighting kaiju in a giant robot thing, because it's a Japanese show. And so when they ran out of that, then I guess that show had another thing. And so they took the footage of the White Ranger from that, like, next season of the Japanese show and put it in, because the original, the Green Ranger in the Japanese show dies. And so that's why they didn't have any more footage of him.
Yeah, I always thought it was weird that, Tommy comes back as the White Ranger, because it was like, the White Ranger to me looked like a girl. And maybe in my childhood brain, it wasn't quite that, but it was like that. that looks like a girl, and then different scene, and takes the helmet off, and oh, it's Tommy. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think so. Yeah, you can't fool me
Well,
with
but
that.
that's why the White Ranger doesn't look like the other ones, is because
Yeah.
it's a different
Hmm.
series of whatever. They're not the dinosaurs or whatever, which is funny that they'll call it that, because they'll call them like the dinosaur Power Rangers, because they have a mastodon, which is not a dinosaur, and a saber-toothed tiger, which is
Which
not a
is also not a
dinosaur.
dinosaur.
So 3 of them are dinosaurs, but
Yeah.
anyways.
Funny things.
All right,
Funny
I could
things
talk
to
about this all
reminisce.
night, but we should wrap up.
We should wrap it up. All right. Well, folks, we've been going for about 2.5 hours now. I need to unlock the hotel room and let the kids in so that they can go to bed. So I'm going to call it right here. But this was our first Saturday stream. We'll see. We'll put some polls out, see how people like this, and if you like it better on Saturdays than Sundays, maybe we'll do it again. Maybe we'll try it Friday. We'll kind of just stick our finger in the wind and see how people like that. But anyway, we hope this has been a benefit to you. Hope this has been some encouragement, and we also hope that you have a wonderful night. Thank you for being here, and farewell.